Now, I understand at your school, you have been very, very busy in the extracurricular department, and you founded a new club at your school. Tell us about the club.
So, I'm actually in another club called Skills USA, and I was asked to host their open houses last year for the upcoming school year. And we didn't have a lot of people come, so it was really slow, and I just kind of started scribbling down some ideas. And I actually got inspired by the Camera Club of Richmond and was trying to come up with my own photography club for our school to enjoy because we don't have anything like that here.
Hello everyone, I'm Karen Davis, the Publications Director for the Camera Club of Richmond. We are excited to be here at the Gelman Room of the Richmond Public Library for our first ever Camera Club of Richmond show. So we have the Gelman Gallery here and lots of our wonderful pictures from our photographers. So I would like to introduce you to Lynn Van Ness, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about the library and about some of the galleries that are here. So Lynn.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, we have 4 galleries, and we're so pleased to be able to exhibit fine photography and art. We have a portfolio review 3 times a year, so we're always seeking submissions. And of course, with 4 galleries, we need a good number of artists and photographers. We're very happy with a solo show, a joint show, and a group show. And I've always said it is a very mutual benefit for the artists to get to exhibit their work, and a great benefit to the library. We get to have art on the walls.
And to all the folks that are here tonight, you can probably hear in the background, we've got a lot of folks that are here to see our exhibit and the other ones that are here. So let's take that into consideration for your next adventure. For those of you who have never exhibited, this is a great opportunity. Give Lynn a call and get yourself on the list to be here in the Richmond Public Library. Yes. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Karen.
So this is one of 2 print submissions we have. As Karen mentioned too, it's been a long time since we had physical prints for evaluations here too. This is a really nice image. It is has a beautiful tone range to it. I like the composition. There's a lot of things going on, but overall, I mean, it's really got a great nostalgic feel to it. I like the texture in the clouds in the background. Those are very well done. The darks are good and dark and rich. And overall, I think it's got the full spectrum from nearly pure white to the blackest black. So it's a very nicely composed. I like how the roof line leads from one building to the other. And then the wagon direction where the artist chose to stand draws the eye back in towards that lower wagon wheel and around. So it's a very, you'll hear me mention this from time to time. It's a very important how the eye travels around an image. And in this one, it really does a nice circular motion down into the picture, back around again as well. So very nicely done.
There's a line over here, something on the screen. That's going to see that. That's not part of the picture.
No.
Do you know how that was printed?
Whoever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Storm over Canyon Sunset.
It's the next one. What was the one before?
Yeah, Storm over Canyon Sunset.
The other side there. Lost in Time.
So the one we're just looking at was called Lost in Time
Time by Mark.
by Mark Best. Okay, great.
Before you continue, Leo, can we get the picture center?
Move your chair over. Okay, here's the next print submission. This is a very nicely composed landscape. I like that the rocks on both the left and the right are framing the background stone wall. This appears to be like the Grand Canyon. And I like the color contrast in the foreground area as well as the way that the bushes across the bottom in green are pushing the eye back around towards the left side. So nicely done. Looks like it's nicely exposed as well. Very nicely done and nicely printed. The color accuracy looks very good as well.
So that was a Storm Over Canyon Sunset by Mark Best.
That was great. I'm switching to digital.
A moment, his dog, and a man.
I'm gonna try and stand over here where I'm not blocking anybody. All right. So here we are, the first of the digital images. This is a very interesting image. I like the black and white treatment. A little bit of matting around the edge really holds the eye into the scene as well. I like the use of the branches. Also, the whole thing has a nice circular framing to it. I like the person on the bench is not necessarily identified exactly who they are, so it kind of could be anyone. Looks like they're there with their dog as well, and nicely done.
Miriam Barnhart.
So once again, I like the matting on this really fits nicely to the image. It really pulls my eye and kind of holds it onto the picture. So nice job with that. I love the composition of this. This is something for me that has translated over the years of photography for me is to back off my images and include more environment to them that can often be very interesting and more interesting than just focusing in on what you have chosen to be your subject. So this is a very nicely created image. I like the linear flow to it. It looks like it's got a nice horizontal horizon feel to it, like it's properly oriented to the horizon as well. So very nicely done. I like the use of the blue and the greens both in it. Very nice warm overall tone to it.
Ann Fulcher. A Coma Maiden.
So this has very much a, I don't know if this was all composed originally together or if they were cut out and stacked as an art piece. That's sort of the feel I get from it. So it's a very interesting collage either way of different subject matter together. To me, there is an awful lot going on with the balloons and the woman and her dress and the buildings all together. And I would be surprised if this was not stacked together and composed, because the amount of f-stop it would take to get from her nose to that balloon in the background would be a pretty big f-stop, so, or a pretty tiny one actually in this case. But anyways, it's an interesting collage of different things. Another challenge with doing these often is that the lighting can often come from different directions, and when you combine images from different things, and their sunlight direction is different. It's often sort of a collision of in your mind of where the right light direction is coming from.
Ed Hageman. African Sunset.
All right, this is a beautiful landscape scene. I love the landscapes when they include the critters like this too, and I think the only it's very well composed, wonderful straight horizon to it. The colors are beautiful. The only thing I would suggest is making sure those dark areas are reaching or approaching full black. It's very difficult to sort of find. There's a teetering line with shadows when you go to bring those up in situations like this that are typically very drastic, to bring up, a really conceivable amount that's, is it too much, too little? There's just kind of a balancing point there. And I think this is very close to certainly to that being correct. Just make sure that your blacks are approaching the black, and it'll really have that nice contrast to it. Very beautiful image.
Harold Vanna. Ain't going back to sea no more.
Okay, this is a nice black and white image. It's got a nice composition to it. I like that the ship has a little bit of tilt left to it. The horizon in the distance looks like it is parallel and horizontal as it should be. And I don't know if it's just that that it might be a little bright in the screen. And if it is on the image originally, then keep it how it is. Otherwise, just make sure that the black is deep enough and rich enough that you keep a good amount of contrast, because the detail in the whites looks really terrific.
John Schickler. Albuquerque Alley Art.
So the first thing right off the bat is I like that this has a vertical crop to it. All of the images within there are linear from the person walking down the sidewalk and the columns. That's a great use of cropping images and kind of breaking out of the standard 2:3 format that we are used to coming out of our cameras. So very nice job with that too. The eye leads very nicely down the row of columns towards what I would consider the primary subject in there as well. The colors are very nice. They relate to each other back and forth through the image, from the colors in the sky to the colors on the person, and as well as those on the column. It looks good and sharp and well exposed throughout. I see detail, even though the shadows would indicate there was pretty strong light going on. It's still very well exposed. So good job.
Karen Davis.
What's the opinion on the border?
On the border, the pink border, my opinion on that is I like that it is picked up from within the image. If I don't know what other one I might pick, maybe the red instead of the purple might be. It's maybe a little distracting. Could be toned back a touch, but I'm okay with it as is though. Somebody was asking here in the crowd about what I thought about the border image. So the pinstripe. So it works with it, I think.
An apple a day.
This is a good fun action capture that I like the crop to it as well. You've left the little guy some room to run forward into the screen. And I don't know if you'd open up the top crop just a little bit more to give him a little more running room, but overall it's, he's running towards that upper left-hand corner and you have left him room up there. So that's really good. Keeping the shutter speed up on moments like this is always, when you're in the moment, you got to kind of take what you have. It looks like his nose could use a touch of sharpness, or maybe his eye could be a touch darker, but great job capturing fun action. That's a great fun shot.
Billy Sinclair. Architecture and light.
So this is a very nicely exposed image. It's a great use of black and white as well. It looks like there's really nice detail throughout the image, from the brightest of whites, approaching that pure white, but still leaving detail throughout all the gradients that are happening through the architecture there. The blacks look like they're good and dark and rich, really approaching that full black sort of thing too. So very nicely done, beautifully composed as well. Well done.
Tony Johnson. Bloom where you are planted.
So this is nice, almost sort of an environmental statement piece here too. I like the matte and the dark pinstripe as well, seem to really draw my eye in towards the image itself and not distract from it. I like the way that the plant texture and the stone texture, are sort of fighting each other in a way, as it should be in a statement piece like this. And I love that you've chosen this particular stonework, because it really has a wonderful, almost modern art piece look to it overall, and really has great texture. The exposure looks good as far as good rich darks and whites that aren't blown out. I still see lots of sandy specks there on the lower left side as well. So it has detail within it. Very nicely done.
Linda Fernschmiel. Bluesman.
This is a great action capture. These are often very difficult scenarios to get good photographs in, because often the lighting is either changing or it's all inside lighting, which doesn't always capture greatly with photography equipment like sunlight does. So very nice job getting the capture. The tone range looks really great from dark to light. There's still nice detail in his shirt. I like I don't know if the lighting, I suspect, seems natural. So whether it was or not doesn't matter. It looks like it was. It really adds to the mood of this piece. The only thing I would say is just to make sure you have, I would come just a touch tighter towards his stage left elbow there, and then off to the right side of the image, if there's nothing crazy distracting over there, just because his main motion of his singing in this case is pushed off there towards the right-hand side of the image, to make sure that there's somewhere for that to go. And very nice.
Jerry Posnell. Body Reflections.
Yeah, very nice. It's the Body Island Lighthouse, I suspect, on the Outer Banks. Very nicely done. I don't think I've seen this lighthouse from this perspective before, so very nice job with that. And the tone range in it's very nice. You've got a nice moody, good job you choosing a good time of day or afternoon, whether it's morning or afternoon, with the selection of that time of day when the light is kind, especially to white objects, especially in the coastal zone. It tends to be a bit more intense. So it has a nice moodiness to it. Overall, the tone range is really nice. The colors have a nice warmth to them as well. I do like the crop a lot too, so very well done.
Ann Fulcher. Boneyard.
This is very nice. First off, excellent job getting down there and getting your belly in the sand, because this was obviously taken from ground level. You can see the little shell particle there, just inches below the end of the lens, which really adds to the drama and great job cropping of this. I like that you've kept the muted reflection that's there in the water area as well. That really adds a lot of interest to it as well. Yet it is not such a severe reflection that it's pulling away, from this tree stump. And these are some of these images are very interesting because they're really sort of a new thing into the environment, where these are most often these scenarios that are known as the boneyards like that are often happen because of sea level rise. So very interesting, and for me, kind of a interesting statement piece as well. So very nicely done. I like the mat and the pinstripe around the edge as well.
Jeff Stevens, Botanical Lace.
So this is a nice floral that's been presented in sort of an art filtering, and I like the overall tonal quality with the warm sort of tans and golds there, and the green is a nice complementary color to that. So it gives us a nice overall even tone. The border matches, in that as well. So very nicely done. It looks like there's good detail, which gives it a nice texture also.
Anita Storino, Bridal Veil.
So this has a very nice sort of dramatic feel to it, especially sort of the ominous draping of the water coming off the falls in the background, and how interesting that they are contrasted with the falls in the foreground that are much more tame. So to me, that in itself really adds a very interesting contrast as well. The exposure looks really good. These are difficult if you've got any sunlight at all to keep from overexposing, because as soon as any light hits that water and you're shooting slow shutter speed to get the water movement, it overexposes. So great job with your exposure. I like the square composition as well. Very nice.
Wiley Van Veer, Burrowing Owls.
So these guys are hard to find out of their hole. So great job on even being there at the right time to get that moment there where they're coming up out of the hole and sitting fully out of the hole. I've seen these birds numerous times where all you see is their eyeballs down in the hole and they never come out. And so great job with that just right off the start. There's looks like the left owl could use a little darkness in his eyes there, like the blacks there aren't quite as dark as they might be, would just give a little more distinction to his look there. And the midtones, I think, maybe are a touch dark. So you maybe try a pass through shadows and highlights, or just try the midtone slider and bring that up a touch. But otherwise, great job catching that shot.
Ed Hageman, Climbing the Flower.
This is a great little macro shot. You have such a shallow depth of field with this tight macro photography. So great job, first off, right off the bat, with the sharpness of this. It's the same element that has added to the softness of everything else in the background. And I like that there are hints of other flower stems in and out as well. And the only thing I would suggest is try to crop up from the bottom just above those flowers that are on the bottom edge, because my eye does want to draw down there. You could either erase them off, but because his motion is already pointing upwards anyways, I think just that little bit of crop there might help this just a little bit, but it doesn't need much help. Great job.
Carol Ennis, Clowning Around.
So this is very interesting motion photograph here, very nicely done. and it seems as though the clown is on something that's spinning, or something is spinning behind him, but it seems as though he is spinning the way the motion is in his hat there off the red, or I don't know if that was added in, but in any way, it really gives a great whimsical feel to this. I like the crop. I like it that his nose is sort of the dead center of this image. So here's one of those great examples where your eye's really drawn to the dead center of it and stuff. And the circular motion of the blurring that was created is very comfortable when my eye wants to get into that sort of circular motion. It really stays on the image quite well. Very nice.
Carol Hageman. Crossroads.
So this scene here has a nice sort of draw into the center of it. The motion of my eye drawing down the bridgeways from the expressways there, the clouds drifting horizontally across to the other side really flow very easily as well. My only nit with this would be is suggesting that you might try a different time of day. It seems as though the light might have been a little strong. But other than that, it's very nicely composed. Very good job.
Dave Johnson. Cub Scout.
So this is very cute. This is these guys are very difficult exposure-wise, especially to get good images. So here you've got a very dark animal, the black bear, against the sky. And anytime you get something that's dark, no matter what it is, whether it's a crow or a bear against the sky, it accentuates the blacks significantly. And so I always have to stop and slow my shutter speed down, because the camera sees that light. It wants to dim the picture, but you've got something dark that you don't want dimmed. So you have to sort of counteract that with your compensation. So good job getting the exposure. The only thing I would suggest on this is just to make sure that the blacks are good and rich. I know you got to bring those shadows up to keep it from blackening in completely, but sometimes that's the trade-off you make. So very nice job. Good capture of a difficult animal to photograph.
Rebecca Perry. Cyclamen Sirius.
Very nicely composed. I like I like your composition that you have off-centered it, because you would have a great tendency to easily to want to center this arrangement here too. Very nicely done. The only thing I would suggest doing is that when you have the two lower pieces, is the end of those stems, if they were behind or underneath the flower that's starting on the far left, where those were cut at, and the same, I think there's one other one you can see the bottom of, those would all flow a little better into each other stuff. But I mean, other than that, that's a very minor sort of thing. But great job, great composition, nicely exposed.
Susan Kennedy. Distracted.
This is kind of an interesting, almost a society statement, I guess, in a way that, and I'm basing this on the title, that's what the artist is suggesting I look at as the primary subject. And it, to me, becomes sort of a statement of our society, of how many, whether they're driving or in the restaurants, how much face time the world spends when the rest of the world is going on around it. So very nice, a nice kind of story piece. I do like the square crop as well. It's bringing enough of the rest of the movement of the world in as well. So nicely done.
Susan Van Manen. Does anyone has a flaws?
So cute title, to this Eastern Phoebe here. Great job catching the action with him, catching the dragonfly. Nice that you got the eye contact with the bird, which is vitally important with any nature photography, and not necessarily 100% too for people photography, but definitely with nature, it's always best to have eye contact too. My only suggestion would be that if you have image in the original that's off to the right of the bird, especially where that one dragonfly wing is pointing out, if you shifted that branch that he's perched on to where his tail is much closer to the left edge, and if you have any down just a little bit, just because his sight direction is inward and down, if you put him upward and left, you may find he sits, so to speak, in the picture a little more comfortably. Very nice job. Good capture, good and sharp as well.
Sarah. Early voting.
So this looks well exposed. I would suggest maybe the shadows might come up a touch, but overall it looks very nicely done. The only suggestion I would have is sort of the same as in the last image, is make sure you leave those horses a little room left in your image to walk. They're certainly, heading off to the right there. So if the horse number 5's tail was almost to the touching the left side, but fully in the picture, and you left a little room out to the in front of the horses, just a little bit more to leave them somewhere to go if you have that in your original image. But other than that, it looks good. It looks, for moving critters, they look to be sharp and nicely exposed.
Shashi Ayer. Ebony and Ivory.
All right, great title for this too. And here's an example where that approaching black really works with an image. Same with the whites. The whites are bright, but there does appear that I can still see very subtle accents and details in them. And the same with the black too. I see little specks on the building, little puckers in the covering to it. Very nicely done. It's a great contrast piece without going overboard on it. So nicely done. And I think the matte works with it as well.
Shashi Ayer.
Can I ask you a question on that last? Does the parallel, the trapezoidism bother you at all in that last?
Can you go back one? So someone here in the audience, yeah, thank you. That's a good point. Has asked about that there's a little trapezoid sort of feeling to it as well. And in this image, and because I also am always usually very attuned to things being parallel and horizontal, you could, especially on the left-hand side of the screen, the right-hand side of it in the dividing line, it makes a great perspective. You might bring that window in so it's got a little black there so it doesn't fall off the picture. But on the left-hand side, you could bring that down by selecting the left-hand half down the center dividing line and transforming it downward just a bit if you prefer those to be parallel. But for me, it doesn't particularly bother me right off the bat. But yes, that's something you certainly could do to improve it.
And the bush in the corner, what do you think?
And they also asked about the bush in the corner. It's a little out of place maybe with the rest of it, but it's like the argument is it was there. I always remind people when they ask me as well, do you do this, that? I'm like, well, I'm not a journalist, I'm an artist. So if I feel it's annoying, I might take it out, but it's, I think it adds a little component down there. Someone else might consider it distracting too, but that's, I think, our artist choice. It doesn't bother me that it's in there. So I like it.
End of the day.
So here's a very classic sunset picture too. This is another opportunity too to bring a little contrast in this. If you can get those blacks in the shadows on the far horizon trees. I think the horizon, from what I can tell anyways, looks to be pretty straight. You might want to throw a guideline on there and make sure that that's straight. Sometimes the horizons in our pictures, even though you took them straight, they don't always appear that way. This one appears to be pretty good. Do have some land back there that is fighting that a little bit. But that's always visually very important. Make sure that those dark colors, even in the water, could be brought up a bit to give that a little more contrast. The sky looks very nicely exposed too. And I think if you brought those darks up, both in the trees and the water, just especially those deep shadow colors, it would help your boaters pop out just a little bit more too. Very nicely done, nicely composed.
Doug Singelman.
Is it the images? Okay, so I'm looking at stuff on the screen. So y'all online take that on image. I'm actually gonna move my position too, where I can see both the screen and stuff too, because the one on the screen does look nice and deep and rich and dark. So if the image is that way, just ignore what I said. Okay.
Escape to the Mountains.
Very nice. I love this. I love the composition of this. So here's a great example of breaking the rules too. Of while there is certainly some room for these guys to run, you've really and they're truly, in all reality, kind of heading towards the edge of the screen awfully quickly. But the way that the rest of the image itself really kind of sweeps my eye down towards the subject matter. It is somehow works really well with this. Great job catching the action and stuff too. Another thing that makes this image work so well is you have eye contact with a significant portion of the herd. I can see, the faces of more than I can't see, and the ones in the back are obscured enough by the front ones that have good eye contact that it's very non-obtrusive at all. So great job. I love the overall color tone as well. So very nicely done.
Heidi Nunnally. Everglades Twilight.
So here's a very centered image that works quite well. Fortunately, the trees off to the left and the right sort of frame in, as well as the reeds along the bottom, and the sweeping clouds really help draw my eye and keep it in the scene too. So I like the composition. It looks good and dark and rich in the blacks when I'm now seeing it on the screen as well. So great job getting your color range well. The clouds also look nicely lit, and a reasonable amount of color without appearing to be, like crazy oversaturated. There's, often a fine line of richness of color and oversaturation. This looks very nicely, richly done, very beautiful, nice and sharp, great contrast of colors as well. I think the only nit I might have is that the border pinstripe pulls my eye to, my eye wants to go to that because it's brighter than anything in the image. You may try one of those more subtle blues maybe in the sky if you're going to do one of those, or maybe that amber color right at the horizon sunset or something like that. But something would just tone down a little bit. But otherwise, a great shot.
Philip Snyder. Eye on You.
This is really cute. So here's another fully centered subject matter with the eye, and it works quite well. Fortunately, that little bit of duckweed there on the back of his head really helps my eye roll back into the picture with the overall green tone. I do like the matte color on this as well, and the pinstripe color too. works fine, and it looks nicely exposed, very sharp. Great job.
Jeff Stevens. Eyes on the prize.
So this is a very nicely composed image. I like the eye contact as well. It looks very sharp, really nicely done with the sharpness. And if you notice, the background there is beautifully blurred out. That's often with animals very difficult to do. Whether they're in zoos or in the wild, doesn't matter. It becomes very difficult. Sometimes zoos are even more difficult because you have more man-made stuff. So great job getting a good smooth background and great sharpness. The color tone looks very nice as well as the colors themselves. Well done.
Bruce Moore. Fairman. Fairman.
Okay. Oh, Fairman. Okay, great. So this is a nicely exposed image, nice sharpness to it. I like the scenery overall. My only suggestion would be either crop in from the right a little bit, and from Bugs Bunny there's some. And if you have more room in your original file off to the left, maybe draw it that way, just because my eye wants to follow wherever he's looking. So you could either crop in from that size or just include more image on the left-hand side. If you have more image on the left, I would try that first because I like the carnival feel of the background that you've chosen. So great, fun shot.
Jay Denny. Family-sized nest.
Whoa. So these are prothonotary warblers. Very nice. They are known to nest in odd places. They are cavity nesting birds. So really cool that you've found some using a Planter's peanut can to nest in. So that's very exciting. Beautiful birds that are here in Virginia only during the breeding season. So great job capturing that and getting both birds there. Great eye contact with both birds. I like that you have off-centered them to the right because they're both looking left, which really allows you also to include their choice of housing. So the only suggestion I would have is if you have a little room in your original file to the bottom, or bring the crop down from the top just a tiny bit, and give them just a touch more room towards the bottom. But other than that, it's very nicely captured.
Pat Davis. Fishing from home.
So this image has a really pretty, almost sort of a Caribbean color range to it, with the beautiful blues and from the mural on the building, the sky color and the trees behind, all sort of tie into that same color range, as well as the statue itself, which is interesting. I think the only thing that my eye is really fighting on is maybe cropping in from the right a bit. And if you can take a step to the left so that the fishing pole clears the tower in the background. I know you can't just move that out of the way. But if you did that, it would at least separate the fishing pole part, which you have told me in the subject is what you want me to see, the statue there, then I think that would help it a lot.
Sorrow. Flower fly.
Wow, great macro capture. This is really interesting too. So here's, you can see that super shallow depth of field you get with macro photography, and even at this amount must have been a pretty good f-stop. I would guess probably 11 or 18 or so, depending on the lens, but very nicely done. Beautiful color contrast, beautiful background. nice. I like the orientation of the flower petals as well. It really gives a linear line. My eye wants to kind of grab that front petal and drift over there towards the subject. And then the little tops of the flowers there sort of circle my eye back around, which always makes for a very, I often refer to it as a comfortable image to my eyes. It makes my eye comfortable to look at because of that motion that is created without my eye wandering off the screen. So very nicely done.
Carol Annis, font of Salisbury.
So this is a very interesting image. My eye really does want to just sort of wander around it in various ways. It has that feel to it as though it's almost mirrored to itself. And the glass in the back center is nicely lit and exposed. It has nice color and detail to it. The front is makes a very interesting motion feel to it. So very nicely done. I like the cropping as well.
Paul Bickford, getting air.
Great job capturing the action on this. That's a very interesting shot. I've seen, a lot of photographs of buffalo. I've never seen one quite like this. So well done capturing something unique. That gets harder and harder to do all the time. So great job doing that. I think the only thing I would suggest is try checking your maybe the reds in the dark colors a little bit to bring those up. But it looks like it was nicely exposed, really sharp. So you must have a good fast shutter speed going as well. So perhaps the ample light helped you achieve that shutter speed. So great capture.
Terry Truxell, Glass-Smith.
So I love that the glassblower's eye has been framed in the action here. It really does draw my eye straight in. Both his arm motion draws my eye upward towards the subject of the glass. You can see his focus and concentration on there. The only thing I find distracting is the, printing on his shirt a little bit there. And that's, like I said, that's kind of a personal choice of, do you want to erase that off there or not? The other option to that would be to crop it up some, but I think to crop that off, you'd be too far up as well. So overall, I do like the composition stuff too. I like it's a great job sort of capturing. It's a very storytelling photograph, which is always a good photograph. So well done.
Joe Ring, go.
Great action capture. And as I'm looking on the screen, the darks look a little bit light, but boy, when I see it on the computer, it's very nicely exposed. Obviously with nice light to work with, capturing the action, great job getting a good fast shutter speed. I'm sure you would need at least probably 1/2000th of a second or faster to get these guys that still, especially they're getting their legs frozen as well. So great job with that. I like the crop a lot. This is another example where they have left enough room for the horses to travel within the frame without them escaping the picture, so to speak. So very nicely composed as well. I also like the choice of matte color and the pinstripe is, while it's a little bright, it is small enough that it's not distractive. So nicely done there as well.
Link Whitworth, goal.
So this is a very fun, playful image here. The magentas seem a little strong on it. I don't know if that's a saturation thing. They definitely have the bright pink socks to go with it. Just in their facial tone a little bit, looked a little strong there. There might be counterbalance with some more yellow mixed in, but great job capturing the action. It appears as though there's been a focus vignetting, which I think I would like to see the ball, especially that area between the person who's kicked its feet and the ball, in focus a bit more. If that was sharp in the original, if that vignetting's been added and is removable, that might make it more interesting, because the goal, you're telling me in the subject, the goal is the ball going in the goal. So that's the only suggestion I have. And maybe tone down that pinstripe just a little, maybe try that darker purple or one of those turquoisey blues.
John Schickler. Gothic America 2022.
This is very good fun. I love the that we have members that have such fun with their photography. I talk to a lot of people when I'm at exhibitions all the time, often hundreds on the weekends, and I always suggest to people, no matter what you're doing, is that if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. So this is definitely done right in that. It's very fun. I like the choice of colors and filtering as well. The discontent of the onlooker there too is really captivating as well. A nice substitution for the hay fork as well.
Bruce Murph. Grand Teton Sunrise.
So here's a very difficult exposure condition where you've got rising light against deeply shadowed areas. And as I'm looking at the image on the screen, it looks like it's got a very nice tonal range to it. The ones on the projector are a bit softer in the shadows, but as I look at it on the screen, it looks very well captured as far as the darkness and the contrast down there. It's always a very easy tendency when you have that super bright and dark to overdo the shadow lifting, but it looks very nicely done. There's still nice detail in the mountain range there up and throughout the sky. So very nicely done. Nice contrast of colors as well.
Philip Snyder. Grand.
So this is a great example of having good symmetry and straight lines in your horizon. Even though you don't have a sunset horizon like the edge of the ocean, you still have straight lines here, and how well the photographer did in capturing those, whether they straightened them afterwards or captured them in that degree with the proper lens. Great job with that, because it really adds a lot to it. I like that there is good symmetry, and especially the red, which is, it's that bright color in any image is going to draw your eye to it, whether it's the bright color approaching white or just a strongly saturated color. This looks very well exposed. There's great detail from the highlights to the deeper shadows. I love the color range overall as well, is very pleasing. So well captured. Nice crop.
Lara Davenport. Grassy Creek Sunset.
So this is another nice sunset image. I like the reflections in the water and the trees. the clouds in the sky draw my eye back over almost counterclockwise, which is not typical for most pictures, but the way they sort of sweep off there wants to draw my eye back over there to the left. My only nit for this is that obviously the subject matter is the sunset, but other than that, there's not really a strong, compelling subject to it. I think your cropping is very nice with the centering there as well. But beautiful image.
Kurt Engelman. Great egret.
All right, great job catching a flight shot. Anytime you're photographing a white bird with reasonable light on it, it's very easy to overexpose those white details. It appears there is good whiteness with detail throughout the bird. So great job doing that. And you might want to check your ID on that too. I believe he is I don't know if this was taken overseas or if it's a local bird. If it's a local bird, it's not a great egret, I don't believe, because they don't have yellow feet. But still, great job catching it. I like that you've left a few water droplets, behind him, and you've got enough f-stop that you've got the full range of the bird. You're at great eye contact. And I think there's, enough room out there in front of him as well. You could maybe leave a little more there, but overall, I like the composition as well.
Harold Landa.
Yeah, it is an egret. I'm not sure that it's a great egret, though. Oh, did they? Okay. Well, it is a great shot, so it is a great egret.
Green on green.
Nicely done. So here's a nice composition with a little green heron. I like the reflection and stuff too. I might crop down from the top just a touch, not touching those branches, but nearing them a bit more, just because the bird's view itself is downward. So if you got a little bit more space to the bottom, you could include that, or like I said, creep in from the top. Just a 1/4 inch off the top there would be great. Nice job because that water makes a beautiful background for this bird. This is a very environmental sort of look for this bird, because this is a very natural habitat where you would find this guy. So great capture. I like the crop. Well captured. Looks good and sharp too.
Parks Roundtree. Guess I am dinner.
So great job capturing the action. Here's a great blue heron with an eel. He is turned away from you just a bit, which is, unfortunate. But when those moments like this happen, you get the shots when you can get them. I like that you've cropped it in tightly so that we see he is he's full in action with his lunch there. The sharpness looks good on the bird's face. This example where, it's nothing you can do about it at the time, because it is what it is, where it is. But anytime you can move yourself, if it helps clear out the background, if you can, it's always helpful. So great job capturing the action.
Terry Truxell. Guggenheim.
So this is a nice textured piece that almost has that sort of modern art feel to it with the composition. So great job there selecting a piece of your surroundings to make an interesting composition. The sweeping lines across it to me work really well. I like the overall color tone range. And like I was saying a minute ago, it's that drawing of the color that your eye will follow, so that my eye wants to sweep across the yellows and golds there across the top, and then it hits those diagonals and draws right back up to that pretty green doorway or whatever it is there with the green. That's adding that interest of color there in the center.
Billy Sinclair, headliner at the zoo.
That's funny. That's really funny. So here's another interesting sort of storyteller piece that's got a lot of fun happening in it. And, once again, my eye is a little bit drawn to flying off the image a little bit to the left-hand side, just because the subject at the bottom's gaze is very strong. And so I would include a little more to the left there if you have it in there. It is sort of counteracted with the guy up on the stump looking down, draws my eye back down quickly. And the vignetting helps with that as well. So that's my only suggestion, might be that if you have a little room on the left there, to include that, or definitely bring it in just from the right just a little bit. You don't want to cut off the end of that guitar, but approach that closely. Overall, though, the exposure looks really good. The sharpness looks good. I like the use of vignetting as well. So, and nice use of black and white.
Joe Ring, Hammer likes red.
All right, very nice capture. So one of the things that makes this image work for me is that your view of the hummingbird is very perpendicular to his body. To me, that always makes a great composition for birds. The background is, once again, clear and beautiful. There's no distraction back there. Anytime you can include that sort of thing in any image, whether it's wildlife or not, it works especially well with wildlife here, both behind the bee balm flower and the bird, both making it very even in tone as well. This is, I imagine, probably at least 2,000 to 3,200th of a second to get the bird's wings to freeze. It's a nice male bird as well, so it has the red there on his throat. Nice composition too. You have movement from right to left with the flower and from left to right with the bird, so they really join nicely together. Nicely captured, and great composition. You might try, I'm looking at the image on the screen, and odds are that because that flower is so intensely red, you may have purposely toned it down. But I could see maybe just you could bring out a little more saturation in it. That would help that flower pop just a little bit more, because it is a red, intense flower. So good job not overexposing it, but it may have been dimmed back where there's room for a little more brightness. But great job, great capture, good composition.
Cindy Walker.
Yeah, someone suggested too, the flower stem's a little hot down there too. You can maybe just dim that down a little bit, especially the greens to its.
I am ready to get off now.
So here's kind of a statement of wildlife in the city. This is an osprey carrying off, looks like a herring perhaps even. In there too. I like your choice of composition. I would leave maybe if you have it in your original, just a touch more on that upper right hand corner, but not much, just about the same closeness that's there already. It does help the bird lean into the image though, so I like that you have off-centered it. I like the contrast with the buildings in that sort of conflict story of nature against the building cities. So nice storytelling image, and I like the perspective as well.
Kemp Davis, Inside Out, Polsky Center.
This is a very nicely composed image. It looks like the tone range is really good from black to whites. Those windows are, very see-through looking. They have nice detail, especially in that section off there to the left. I actually like that it's a little off-centered for this. I think, I probably would have been tempted to just totally center the posting and try to get everything even on every side. This actually works very well that it's close to that, but it's not like as clearly geometric as the other was. And I think that really makes it work as well. Nice ranges throughout, nice composition, the little pinstripe around the edge, and the gray matting work nicely too.
Susan Van Manen, Into the Ether.
So right off, I'm having this as almost sort of a kind of a moody piece here. I'm not sure if I'm perceiving it as it is being presented as much. The center, what feels to be a hand railing or a railing of some sort, is like I'm not finding enough depth of field in that part of the subject that gives me full recognition. I do like that the lines draw in. I like the off-centering of the person going off the screen is sort of intriguing too. It makes me wonder where they're going to. And I think you've got an interesting idea there. Perhaps if the portion of the linear work there from the center, if the bar on the right was sharper in the foreground, it might draw my eye in a little more. But I feel like my eye is kind of already starting there in the center and is not sure where it wants to go. It kind of goes to the person to the left, and I don't feel it makes sense there. But it's very interesting. I think would keep working with that.
Gary Kornfeld, Italian Classics.
So here's sort of a modern versus ancient statement here. The looks like the sun was pretty strong by the darkness of the shadows. So nice job capturing the detail in both of those areas. When you get the bright light like that, it's hard to keep it down. So it looks like you did a good job exposing as far as keeping those, especially those red colors from blowing out. It looks like there's detail there and nice brightness. Also, the color tones of the stone is really nice and contrasts with those warm yellows against the blue skies, as well as the statues up top there. I like the vertical composition as well.
Lara Davenport, Kingfisher on Branch.
So this is, if anyone does nature photography knows this is one of the most notoriously skittish birds in all of North America. So good job getting him in the frame at all, because they are, I always tell people it's like you're 100 yards away and you crack your window of your vehicle and they fly off. And so good job capturing a very elusive skittish bird as well. I would be tempted either to crop it from top and bottom, so it's almost like a panorama, because this overall has a very nice linear image. His focus of the bird moving towards the left, is almost straight horizontal. So I think you could maybe try that, both top and bottom. If not, come in tighter from the bottom right and the top left with your crop too. And as much as I like environmental inclusion. There's not a whole lot going on in the environment there behind him. So I think in this case, if you brought the crop in from the right, at least past that little twig down there that's broken, it would help draw and keep your attention on the bird. It looks good and sharp. It looks well exposed. Another tough shot sometimes to do when you're against the sky, because it wants to darken. Your camera's going to want to darken that too much. So nice job with the exposure as well.
Pat Davis.
All right, here we go.
Leaving.
Okay, so as I'm looking at this on the screen, it looks like the dark colors in here are good and rich and nicely done. I like the expression in both characters in this story. The crop is a little close on the top of the woman's head. I wouldn't mind seeing just another one of those stripes perhaps above her, but a very great use of black and white sort of urban photography, if you will. I love the gaze, way to capture, great job capturing the expression of the child and the woman both. Very well done.
Mauer. Life or death.
So great job capturing the action of this. This is, one of those things on an African safari you would hope to see, and if you're lucky enough to see it. So great job right off the bat capturing the action. Looks like your light exposure is really well done and well processed. Whichever end that came on, nicely done there. My only suggestion might be to just bring your crop down from the top some. I like that you have the environment of the savanna, but I think my eye would be more drawn to the great story that's going on here, even if it was down as far as like those, the three wildebeest there in the back. Even just below or right along those dark bushes there would make a nice sort of border edge framing as well. And you'd still have a nice bit of savanna in there as well. So you might try that. Nicely done. Great capture.
Ted Jerkuda. Misty Morning.
This is a great moody piece here. Great job being out there early in the mornings. If you want to do bird photography, you got to get up early. So I love the fact that you were there when you had warm waters and cool air that's got the nice fog lifting there. And it really makes a very nice moody image here. I like the composition and the inclusion even of the fainter trees in the background. This image would probably also work as a sort of panorama style if you brought your crop all the way down to just above the leaves on the stumps in the foreground there. But I don't mind that the mist is in the back because that really adds to the moodiness as well. Very nicely done. I like the crop also.
Parks Roundtree. Morning Glory.
So nice job, beautiful, dramatic scene. This is where a typical, sort of sunset, approach that we see in so many pictures is really working well. It's very well composed. The lines of the surf are drawing my eye in towards the center. I like that the sunset is not dead center in the middle of the image. My eyes, the lines from both the ocean waves in the actual surf zone and those that have crashed already on the beach, that white line, all those draw my eye towards the center, along with the horizon lines off to the right. There's a bit of almost a circular spin to the clouds that also work very nicely. This has that very textured sort of HDR feel to it that I like, that is just expresses the deepness and richness of each layer of the in between each little wave ripple, almost, you can see. Really nicely done, nicely captured. Very, very nicely done.
Ted Jerkuda, National Cathedral.
So this is a good crop for this image here. Nice vertical image with a vertical crop. I like that your little pinstriping around the edge is subtle, because if that was white, I think it would really detract. So I think that was a good choice as well. It looks like it's well exposed. The texture on the building itself is all there with each stone. I can see the texture in it. So great job with your exposure. The darks, as I'm looking on the screen, look like they're rich as well. So overall, nicely composed, and I like the treatment.
Leo Weinberg, nice catch.
So this is, I like the composition of this as well too. All these wading birds do a little fish flip as they have caught their prey, so that they turn the fish head first so that it slides smoothly down their gullet, because otherwise the scales will be going the wrong direction and scratch their throat all the way. So it's kind of an interesting, fun moment there to catch when they do that flip around. So great job catching the action. I like the composition as well with the multiple birds. This is taken as the heron run up the river as well. So great job being, people always ask me with my wildlife photography, how do you get those shots? I'm like, well, you got to be there. It's at the right time. It's not just all random encounters too. I mean, that happens some as well, but it's being at the right place at the right time when things are happening. And this is part of that herring run that happens in the spring when the herons gather there as well. And so great job with that also. My only suggestion would be, as you do have a lot of eye direction of the two backbirds pushing off to the right. So you could either, if you have a little room left in your scene, to just shift your crop to the right a little bit, or just bring it in from the left. Either of those would provide the same service to your picture, where you have just that little bit of room there as well, because I do like the inclusion of those two backbirds. It would also move your primary subject towards that corner, giving it that interesting sort of off-center look. So very nicely captured.
Kent Davis, Ocean of Echinacea.
So this is very interesting. I like this composition. I'm currently working on a woman's who's a flower farmer's second book in Newport News. I was there this morning on a photo shoot till 1:30, and it's interesting trying to make compositions of groups of flowers, and this is done very well, because you can move a little left or right, just a few, half a foot this way or that way, and it makes a completely different composition. So way to position yourself so that you have separation, especially in those front flowers. There's no way to get separation in the back, but nor do you need it. It's those front ones that will create the most interest to your eye, because they're going to be the brighter spots. So I really like the composition. It looks well exposed. Overall, you may try darkening those greens a little bit to see, or maybe even a little vignetting around the edge also might keep your eye drawn in towards the center. But good job getting a good composition on a chaotic scene. Well done.
Anita Storino, Off She Goes.
All right, nicely done. This looks like bald eagle au naturel. This appears to be a natural catch too, so good job there. I don't recognize that background, so I don't think it's a James River bird. It looks too stony back there, but nice capture, good eye contact with the bird. I might crop in a little bit from the right, again, leaving him some room. Like I said, if you have room in your frame, just shift the whole thing to the left a little bit. It has kind of a nice vacation sort of feel. You can maybe bring even your crop down from the top a little bit. Maybe just about it's interesting because while the canoe might be considered distracting, it kind of, to me, sort of gives a vacation sort of feel to this scene. So you might try to crop down from the top and the right some, and see if that works still.
Doug Singelman. Ostrich talk.
So here's a great portrait shot. The whites from here, how do they look on the screen? So I'm looking at the whites on the screen. They look approaching hot, but I can see that there is detail up there on the top of his head. They are light colored on the top of their head there stuff. So just check on that. You might want to bring those down just a touch if they're not there. But they're very close to it too. But it does look like they're there on the screen. I would also try rotating your crop clockwise just a little bit to straighten his neck. That's one of those sort of, it's not a true horizon because you're not dealing with the landscape, but when you can turn things more perpendicular and vertical, they tend to be more appealing in that manner, even though he may not have been that way. And if there's nothing in the background, that will give you an indicator that you're basically cropping it crooked from how it really was, but it may actually look straight if you do that. So you may want to just try that and see if it works. But I like the, other than that, the closeness and the detail.
Carol Hageman. Overtaking the lead.
So here's another great one of these horse images. Very nicely done. Great job with the composition, giving the horses some room to run as well. I like that there's good detail throughout. Looks like the shadow work is really nicely done. There's good color range, start to finish, so to speak. And the color rendition looks really good too. So great capture.
Bill Whitworth. Peony blossom and bud.
So this is a very interesting choice of light direction. It's a little different than I've seen, and I actually, it really works for me. I like the composition too, with the bud down there in the right-hand corner, and the whites are there, even though you've put the offset lighting to it. I like it, gives it that nice sort of rim lighting kind of look to it that really allows for a lot of shadows to happen down in a flower that's, doesn't have much color variation. So it really has provided a nice range of shadows within the light ranges of the flower, giving it a nice amount of form. The only thing I find distracting is the one twig down there in the bottom left wants my eye to sort of draw off the screen a little bit there, but it's not, crazy annoying. It's just drawing my eye down a little bit there when I really want to look up there at the beautiful light hitting on the flower. So nicely done, nicely lit.
Susan Kennedy.
And if you were any of the earlier pictures where I was knitting on the darkness of your darks, having moved over to the screen where I see those, I suspect most of those were probably quite well done. So I hope I didn't step on any toes with that. So now that I can see them better on the screen too.
Perpetuity.
So here's a nice capture with good exposure of a statuette, a very nice smooth image here too. The composition for me works good. His hair sort of frames as well as the movement coming in there from the right-hand side. You may try this as a black and white. It still may carry quite well. In that as well. So nice composition, looks sharp and well exposed.
Gary Kornfeld. Please.
So this is a nice composition and texture. This is, I think, really interesting how it shows the back, which really has a significant amount of texture to it. We're used to seeing sunflowers from the front face size too. So I like the leaf there, adds in well. At first I felt maybe the sunflower in the back was a little distracting, but it kind of pushes my eye back up that stem because it mimics the shape of the stem itself and really draws my eye back up. And so I like the use of the background as well. Kind of has a nice bit of cloudy texture to it. The image looks sharp and well exposed and well processed throughout. So nice image.
Marianne Bonhart.
Oh, you guys are off.
Uh-oh.
No.
Yeah, that could reach towards the sky and come down.
I see.
That was Reach Towards the Sky from Tony Johnson.
Reach it. Tony Johnson. So what happened? Where's the set of sequence? This one. This is ready to roll.
So it appears we maybe were a short one image. We'll check in on that too. And if it was, we'll get it caught up on the next
We're
group.
missing this, please remember.
So this is ready to roll. This is very nicely composed. The colors all look good and rich throughout. A nice depth of field from the front car. Slightly softening towards the back, but it really draws my eye down the row. I like that the colors, especially the reds, how they contrast with the grass. And having said that, I am actually just now sort of noticing the red pinstripe around the edge, which is maybe a little of a bright choice, but I think for me it really works with this image anyway. So it really, wants my eye to draw back into those red wheels that are quite interesting. It's once again that notion of my eye being drawn to the brighter elements in there. So nicely done, nicely composed. The color rendition looks really good, especially on the screen version I see, which I understand to be the most true. So well done.
Karen Davis. Salvation.
So great job capturing this when there's such drama in the sky. It's reminiscent to me of the one a few slides back with the really dramatic ocean scene where that part of the picture is, if you mathematically measured this image and, and counted the square inches of the background, it will be equal to or more than the subject matter itself. So it really is a significant part of any image. And with this one, it really adds drama to a very interesting scene anyways. Overall, the color range looks really nice from the deepest dark sort of stormy cloud over there on the right into the building. The whites look very nicely represented as well. Beautiful full color range in this image.
Wiley Wanvier.
So I really, I like the crop on this picture. Well done there, young girl. I'm suspecting from her numbers is getting ready for a race or finishing a race, one or the other.
Splash and dash.
And, or a swim, perhaps just finishing a swim, but very nicely done. Great composition, beautiful tonal range everywhere throughout this picture. I like that the f-stop used has allowed for full sharpness of the subject matter, and it still is softening into the background. Great job capturing, sort of a storytelling moment in the action there as well. So nicely done. And the little pinstripe border is subtle enough to be that it works well.
Lynn Whitworth. Spotted sandpiper's glance.
Very good. Nice. Good job with the ID too. This is nicely composed. Here's another great example of a nice, smooth, soft background. These birds come through the riverbanks on their migration, spring and fall. I love the position of the bird. Notice you've got that perpendicular glance giving you great eye contact. Overall, the composition is really strong as well. Too, the sharpness looks terrific, especially where you have to have it there on his face and eye. Here's, as I was just saying, another example of how much background is part of an image. And in this, it's probably 60, 70%, probably a good 60% anyways of background, and how important that is in the picture. I also like that it's the river as it appears to be in the background as well. So nicely done.
Cindy Walker. Summer's postcard.
So right off the bat, instantly, great composition on these Rosa Sharon here. Beautiful sharpness in the flowers, well exposed. Here's another bright color that's can be easy to over exposed. I like the choice of background as well. It's you've got some dark stuff and some very light stuff. So I think that choice was good because it allows distinction without being over contrasting. It adds overall subtlety because it has a little bit of color tone in it as well with the shadowing. So looks like very nicely done. I like the crop.
Jay Denny. Sunflower Storm.
So here's another example where that sky can add so much mood to an image. And not also that, but because of the brightness of the sunflowers, it is accentuated contrast because of the darkness of the sky to an overall bright subject as well. I love the composition that you chose to include the row that is vacant there in between. Really draws my eye up that dark area into the dark sky. So I think it really adds to the image as well. And I like that the little pinstripe is subtle enough that it contains the image without overpowering it. It is appears to be slightly darker than the brightness of the flowers. If it was the same brightness, it would, I think, really fight it. So nice job. And here's another example of making a good composition out of an overall, apparently chaotic scene because you've got flowers everywhere. And so great job with that too.
Michael Orr. Sunset Shades.
Yeah, nice job too. And a very well done title also, I'll have to add, and stuff too. It makes a very interesting thing. The title really draws my eyes directly to what you're asking me to see in the image. So great job with that. The tone range on this is really good. It's easy to get overexposure even with more subdued sunset light. So nice job with that. I like the crop as well.
Kurt Engelman. The Alcan.
So I'm peeking up on the screen on this. It's very nicely exposed, has a really full tonal range. Even on the screen, this one carries forward quite well also. I like the crop on this a lot. It has that nice multiple layers in landscapes. Anytime you can do that, adds a great depth to them. You've got trees in the front, one other slope. The road is 3, the mountains behind is 4, the one behind it's 6, and then the clouds are 7, and mountains behind that is 8. So great job getting those multiple layers in there. That always makes for a good, deep, interesting landscape scene. I like the drama of the clouds low below the mountain height as well. So nicely done. And the pinstripe on this one works well also.
Michael Orr. The ball is moving.
Okay, really great composition here too. Notice the direction of everybody is downward, and the artist has placed them high in the scene so they have somewhere to look as all their eye motion is going downwards. And especially, you know, the movement with the 2 primary soccer players there. And even they are brought into the scene towards the center without being perfectly centered. If you notice the player in the back on the far left, his toe is almost at the edge. I think that was a great choice for placement there, as well as where you've cropped from the top has taken off what would be a bright stripe across the top of your picture. Of that goalpost would be very distracting too. So great job there. Excellent job with your shutter speed, stopping the action. I'm sure you're up there in the probably 1/2000s area too. So it's nice you're in an outdoor venue where you have that kind of light to work with without appearing over bright. So great job. Nice picture.
Bill Whitworth. The Finale.
So I like the open crop on this. It really insists because of the vagueness of the background that my eyes see the subject and not wander off anywhere. So nicely done. I love the leaf placement at the bottom, drawing my eye back into that center stem with nicely executed shadows. And the colors are beautiful on this image as well. Very elegant feel to this image. Nicely done.
Rebecca Perry.
Yeah, you could possibly do this as a vertical crop, certainly. And I think one thing that might lead to that, somebody suggested that in the audience, and it would certainly work that way. You would place the stem off center towards the left side if you chose to do that. I do like they did choose to leave the scope of, I would be tempted to crop it in tighter, but I think that adds to the elegance, is the extra area around this. But I really like the handling of the shadows and the transmitted light through the leaf itself too. But yes, it would definitely work as a vertical crop.
The Front Man.
So here's a nice capture, probably in unless it was an outdoor concert, but nicely captured. The lighting's really interesting. It's really lit up his face nicely. You've got a good amount of depth of field. I don't know if you would have had any choice to use less, or how far he was from the wall behind him. But fortunately, the lighting and the colors have separated him off the background nicely. Those are always very cluttered scenes anyway. So I love that you've captured his expression in such a strong way. I like the crop. The tone range looks really good. The color rendition also looks good. Nicely done.
Jerry Posnell. The herring run.
So this is, to me, almost like a cultural piece of communities and groups that come to the river, just as the herons do when the herring are running. I like the way that the hands are all sort of pointing in towards the center. I can't really tell from here. The fish on the right reflection looks like it's lacking detail, but it may be there on the picture stuff too. It's hard to tell from here, but it's a very interesting, chaotic sort of, I don't know, it just has reminiscent to me of a very sort of culture-based image.
Mauer. The show must go on.
So this is an interesting sort of filtered, I believe, look at one of our local theaters. I don't know if this is Altria or not. It's not the Bird, so I'm not sure. I've not been to that one, but I like the use of it. It almost has sort of a cartooned feel to it. The color choices are very nicely done. The way both the golds and the reds and magentas were handled. The composition is nicely balanced overall. The little pinstripe edge is subtle. It really helps break the red off the edge a little bit, while it almost disappears around the upper brighter area where you don't really need that extra help there. So very interesting image.
Linda Fernschmiel. Through the field of lupine.
So nice job capturing this interesting shot. I always find it's interesting when I can include that sort of environmental feature that is so beautiful to start with, and then when you can combine it with an interesting subject as well, works nicely. Now, if you have more image downward, it would, I think, be helpful to give him a little room, more room to walk, as you already have done. And if not even, or even if you do, is I would maybe come down off, cropping downward from the top a bit and see what that looks like. I think if you could get below the blue into that first stripe of the darker grays in the clouds there, that dark gray would make a nice edge instead of the brighter colors that are currently up there. And I think that would help your eye sort of stay downward in the image as well. And then you wouldn't have as much need for lower area as well. So nicely done, nicely captured.
Heidi Nunnally. Tranquil Dream.
So here's a nice use of black and white photography. The detail in this looks really good. The texture of the dog and the background are fairly similar though, so you may want to, if you have brightened that up any, you may consider either vignetting the whole thing or just vignetting the background area. And I think that would draw and keep my attention downward on the dog, or I don't know that it needs a crop from up there, but you could try that too. But I think just darkening the wall in the back would help my eye stay on your subject a bit better. But I do like the overall tones and the texture, both of it.
A real lightning crop.
Yeah, that would certainly be. Somebody suggested a tighter crop, a really tighter crop, just coming down, basically his front arm that's coming in kind of just from there along that elbow and just over his back, so that his nose is in his face is the primary full part of the frame, and that arm sweeping would kind of be the framing part of it. That would certainly work.
Leo Weinberg, uniformity.
So great, great title for this too. I'm looking at the edges, especially the far left and the far right, and they look very parallel and perpendicular to an image like this, which I feel is important to make it functional enough and visually interesting enough, and it definitely has that. I almost feel there's a pull somewhere in there on the right side, but the edges say it's straight, so I'm going to stay with that. Nice job getting it straight, because that's difficult to do with this depth of range if you've got any arch to your lens at all. So it makes a very interesting textural piece. It looks well exposed and a nice tone range in the light colors. You have a lot of light grays working there. They look to be all there and represented. So nicely done. I like the crop as well.
Paul Bickford. Welcome to the garden.
So this is another one that on the computer, it looks like it's got nice shadows in it. They don't hold up quite as strong on the screen. So I'm going to look at the computer screen there. It looks proper there. So nicely done with that. I like the leading line, another classic photographic element, as well as the framing with the fence opening there at the front, and the trees over the top really push your eye in there and down that pathway. So it really draws me in and wants me to go down. Another difficult exposure condition with the shadows and then light hitting that bright green grass. So very nicely done, nicely processed.
Dave Johnson. And that is the last image.
Which one, please?
So we're going to go back and see if we can find, there was one image that we seemed to have disappeared for a moment. So we're going to go back and see if that is there so it can be included. But overall, I've really enjoyed seeing your photos and talking to them. I have had such a insane week and I'm getting ready to start another insane week. I did not have a opportunity in that insanity to preview these as I was offered. So I was seeing these for the first time and just, want to give you my honest opinion, suggestion, whatever. But overall, just a beautiful collection of images. This group has always impressed me with the talent that is here, and the folks who obviously put the effort and artistry into their photography.
Well done.
Very well done.